Hey everyone, it's Raghu back with Mindrolling and with a very, very old friend that's actually, he's not old, but we met.
Just turned 45 2 weeks ago. Come on.
Yeah, you're finished. Yeah, about 15 years ago. So I'm really happy to have you here. Gagan, it's great to see you.
Always good to be with you, my brother.
I was recalling a little bit of when we met, we really connected. Gagan's got a wonderful marketing agency called Guru, and we met around that through the music business of all things, which he was in and I was in. So I was just recalling moments of joy as Bob Thurman would speak to it.
Mm.
And everybody, Bob left us a week ago, and he was so close to so many of us, and particularly, of course, Ram Dass, but Krishnadas more recently, doing a lot of retreats with him and workshops and so on. And he just left. You know, there was no, he got just plucked out, a heart attack, but still, you know. There is, by the way, and you can take a look at this too, Gagan. There's a beautiful piece, a tribute piece that we put together that's Bob over different parts of his relationship with us in Maui, you know, doing retreats and Boone and all that. It's quite beautiful. So everybody, you can find that somehow on YouTube, Bob Thurman, Love, Serve, Remember, or something like that. Or go to ramdas.org. Anyhow, moments of joy. That's how this came to me. And not long after I met Gagan, within maybe, 2 years, we went to India, I would say.
Within 1 year.
1 year, yeah. It was.
Yeah.
I remember it was very short. And so I just wanted, he and his wife, ex-wife, as we are now, but I just wanted them, actually, to experience Siddhi Ma, who is the saint, our Indian mother, who took over in the ashrams once Maharaji left and came out publicly. And she meant something more than I could ever describe, Siddhi Ma. So I was so happy to take them, and it was in Kenchi, and it was before the onslaught that happened after the whole tech bro stuff that put Kenchi on a map that it is what it is. So we went in the room, and you know, I've taken a number of people to see her over the years. Some of them are a little bit deer in the headlights because, you know, it's not rational anything going on. You know, and her whole existence is around Neem Karoli Baba. So as soon as you walked in the room, I saw, okay, that connect happened. However it happened, it happened. And I think one of the things she said, she asked you where you were going and everything, and you something about me, and she said, yeah, just follow him. Yeah, that's good. So we have this kind of relationship, but that moment of joy, that's for me was if you wanted to say, okay, what's the most fun thing, joyous thing that you could do, it would be to bring someone to this being in particular and see the light go on, you know. So I'm just remembering that, and now full circle to what you're doing now. Actually, out of that whole experience, I mean, you were into yoga for years and years and years, but you had, you know, what I'm remembering back is you had the idea to explore the Eightfold Path of yoga, correct? That was the initial thing, and you thought, wow, this is kind of cool. Maybe I'll make a book out of it. So yeah, go back to that and the inspiration therein.
Well, there's a lot in what you just shared, and it's so good to be back with you. I love you very much, obviously, and am delighted to continue to be on this journey with you as as she set us on this path in some ways, and others gave us a little pat on the butt on the way along, Ram Dass being one of them. Yeah, I mean, it started with Ram Dass, really, honestly, when I was in my young teens, and eating some mushrooms and reading Be Here Now, and you get to that third part of Be Here Now, the cookbook.
Yeah.
And it's not like he explicitly laid out the 8 limbs in like a rigid process, but he sort of brought them into a broth and in as different doorways to more contentment and fulfillment in this life. It always spoke to me. I have an overactive mind, I would say. Hopefully not overreactive after 45 years working on it.
Yeah.
But yoga always was able to settle me and really bring me into that space where he spoke about, be here now and presence. And it was because, as a kid, I grew up, I mean, my teachers and whatnot told my parents, oh, he's got ADHD and, this and that, you got to give him Ritalin.
No,
and my parents were like, I think he's got a ton of energy and he's creative but we're going to see how this turns out. And they weathered the storm, if you will, without the proper provisions that were recommended. And I remember in 5th grade, like my 5th grade teacher took my desk away because I couldn't sit still, so she made me stand. I stood there for the whole 5th grade. I was standing.
No, oh God, no.
and then sports really was something where I could put my energy into, and I found some moments of calm afterwards, whatnot. And later in coming onto yoga, I learned, that's kind of the shavasana. That's the space, that's created from that presence. And then you can enter that space. And when Ram Dass comes in, and I kind of dig his story, got sort of parallel, pathing in terms of me being a, Jewish kid raised on the East Coast with a really, entrepreneurial father, and whatnot. And it really spoke to me. I only knew of yoga as movement, and so that was the beginning. I mean, that was the beginning of really understanding that. Now, I mean, going into college and whatnot, I got way more into Buddhism and other sorts of things. And it wasn't really until years later that I came back around and met you. I mean, I was always practicing yoga when I was living there in Venice Beach in the music industry. I was still doing a lot of yoga, but it wasn't until I met you and you kind of opened me back up to Bhakti Yoga, and sitting with you you talk about moments of joy. When I first went with you to Taos, and we sat down in what was the old, before the new temple was built in that space. And, I was there with Jocelyn, closed my eyes, and this was before I was ever in India. And you just started playing. And I didn't know if I was there for 4 hours or I was there for 5 minutes. I was totally gone. And I didn't even know then that was the Hanuman Chalisa. And that Hanuman Chalisa really touched me. And I didn't know the words. I didn't know what it was saying. I didn't know that this was the deity around service, which I've committed my life to, but didn't have a focal point, like a flying monkey to point that towards, So that was it, and that brought me back in to this practice of, which I can go back in the years between, but that brought me back in to realize, that I wanted to go much deeper in my practice here around yoga and really understand it more and commit to understanding sort of the origins and the meanings and how I might be able to apply that to my entire life, to just be a better human, a better leader, a better whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it all transformed into this. Start your own damn cult, okay? Which is so you. All right. Now, there's a lot to sort of pull apart here. But yeah, talk about, okay, what happened? What was that transition from this being strictly around yoga into something that could be a practical guide to people who are entrepreneurs or to companies, whatever it may be? Or how did that transformation happen?
Well,
Of the idea to get it to this.
Yeah. I will come to that. I'll just share again another moment of joy for you and I, which is the impetus for it. I give you a lot of credit in this journey. I was working on this big yoga music festival with Fabian and Tommy Rosen, who down in Los Angeles, and Tommy knew I was into Ram Dass, and you had talked to Tommy or Fabian, and you were coming out. Ram Dass was coming out with the book Be Love Now. You needed to amp up sort of the marketing side and digital, in particular, ecosystem behind it. I think then Ram Dass had 20,000 emails and some social media followers, and you were trying to figure it out, right? As everyone was. I mean, all these major authors that sold millions of books trying to figure out what the conversion looked like to digital. So you and I sit down at lunch. They sent us to lunch. And I mean, I think we immediately kind of fell in love and saw brothers, in each other.
Brothers from another planet, maybe.
Well, yeah, you Canadians are, a little tight sometimes, but I love you anyways. One of the things we found out was that Ram Dass was the spiritual heart of that social venture network. And that was this network, this business network that I had gotten very tight with. I mean, I was in the music industry and I didn't really know what social entrepreneurship was or socially responsible business. I thought you make, as much money as possible and then you give it away. That's good Jews. You'd write it on hospitals and stuff. And then I learned about social responsible business. But I also, when I went into this community, I learned about, it was the first place I did men's work. It was the first place that I saw truly integrated humans as leaders and being open and being vulnerable, but bringing all aspects of themselves, the spiritual and their MBA and all of it into being a leader. And it really turned me on, and it turned Ram Dass on too, early in the 80s when he was there as the spiritual heart of that. And so then you introduced, Ram Dass and I got my first time with Ram Dass, and I remember on Skype. And, that was sort of, that changed my life in a lot of ways, because I, not only did I get the opportunity to work with my hero, and teacher Ram Dass, but I started to see a pathway to integrate the spiritual side of myself and the entrepreneurial side of myself into one. And that's been a long journey. We've known each other now, almost 15 years, probably, something like that. My craft during the day, my business is building movements. I mean, I'm a storyteller and a marketer, and we've built, massive, worked on the Obama '08 campaign and worked on, launching Patagonia's food brand and big, nonprofits like organic and non-GMO and 1% for the planet and big organizations like NASA and stuff like this. And but my craft has always been storytelling, but I've always been a leader of an agency. And it really, it was all about this purpose-driven work we could do. Like, how could I work on stuff I really care about with purpose? And I didn't realize until, I don't know, 5 years into this agency, that it's not just the what, but I was still bringing big agency expats into my little boutique shop, but grinding them. So even though they were working on stuff that mattered, the way we were working was still grinding. And I realized that it took me years to realize the fault in that and to commit to building this from the inside out and eating my own dog food first, in terms of like, the best work is going to come out of a place where I can give people a joyful place to live, to work, and bring their whole selves into that. And for years, and that's been the mission of Guru. I mean, to increase joy and reduce suffering. You talked about joy at the beginning of it, and I think about that at a few levels: increasing joy and reducing suffering for those of us at Guru, our family of folks. One rung out from that, our clients, and how a lot of our clients live in fear, from their superiors and whatnot. So how do we help them to not be in that place and help to collaborate with them in a new way? And then through our clients for the world, increasing joy and reducing suffering for the world in some ways. So I recommitted and was doing it sort of organically, I think, with a lot of charisma and aspiration and, desire to create a better place to work, but without scaffolding, without a true structure to be able to do that. And about I'd say 7 years ago, I thought, and it was sitting right in front of me, I thought, gosh, the 8 limbs of yoga, I am so committed on my individual level to my practice to be a better father and a better, partner and other aspects of my life, be a better human. But I haven't really integrated the 8 limbs like into my leadership. What would that mean? What could that look like?
Yeah.
So that was the start of this book.
Yeah. When you were telling the story of first meeting Ram Dass on Skype, the other day we did a thing for the birthday of Be Here Now Network, 10 years old. And Duncan told his story of the first time that he met Ram Dass. He knew about him and he'd rather be here now, all that kind of stuff. The first time, and he said, he said pretty much what you said. It just changed everything in that moment, and he had no idea of the profundity of heart that would come and kind of take over, It's amazing, how many people did, this is a digression a little bit, but, in terms of Ram Dass, really, he really, he did something for many, many people to open them to the reality, this reality that you're describing. Okay, so next, you started integrating all of that into answering the questions that you were asking about how everybody could live and work together in an environment that was completely positive and truthful and et cetera, right?
Yeah. So, and, really, what I would say is that what happens is it might seem, self-explanatory, but way better work comes out of that environment. So, the organizations that are able to align, the personal purpose of their individual employees with the overall mission, like bring more coherence between those individuals and the mission of the company, and coherence in the culture, you get more innovative, creative people that want to work,
Yeah.
And so the secret sauce to us developing these, creative campaigns and whatnot over years is playing together. And it's at I think many agencies and other spots, they're kind of used to you grind and whip folks until you get good work out of them, and turns out, I love when Ram Dass used to talk about the myths of humanity and how we as society have adopted these various myths.
Right.
Um, and and kind of just, they're just keep going because that's how it's been. And I like to dispel these myths,
Well, you're trying to dispel a huge one here right now. Cult, everybody looks at that word and goes, oh, Buck, what are we going to do with this guy? He's another, we're going to have another cult leader on our hand. And he even got the beard and the long hair and everything.
playing the part.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, cult. I mean, I also love to take back words that have
Yeah.
gotten a lot of stigma around them. So cult's one of them. I mean, the original root of cult is cultus, to care, to inhabit devotion, to make meaning through attention.
Really?
And most cults, it's like they're started by a charismatic leader, right? And then a bunch of people kind of are trying to get close to that charismatic leader, and it goes the wrong way for a number of reasons. What I'm about is that for each of us as humans to really discover and clarify what it is for us to uniquely bring forth from the 0 point field. For me, what am I here to do really uniquely? What's mine uniquely to bring forth? And then if I can clarify that, is that an organization? Is it a product? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a hobby? What is it? And then, if it's an organization, typically, if you want to scale it, you've got to bring other people around it with coherence. So then you start to align some stakeholders around it into more of a flow state. And then from there, you can start to amplify from the inside out to the world. And that's how we've built these brands and companies and, movements and nonprofits over the past 15 years. And, so a lot of brands we work with start as like a cult brand, like I'm sitting here drinking my yerba madre, right? Oh, you can't even see it because of the blur. Oh, good. They censored it out. AI censored it out. They didn't give us any sponsorship money for that anniversary yet. So I just did a workshop for them last summer on how to scale cult, because they've been able to build a cult brand. I mean, $100 million brand that people really love and believe in. They've got 10,000 ambassadors that will go bring yerba madres to any experience they're going to. I mean, most companies would kill for that kind of devotion, But then the question becomes, well, how do you scale cult and keep your soul while doing it, which in today's age ain't so easy, and so that's really what I've been in the business of, and sort of bringing together, and it works great for these bigger brands and organizations that we've worked on, but it also it is incredible to see entrepreneurs dig into this book, because I set it up as a workbook. It's like you play with it, there's reflections in it, there's practices. I mean, I can talk about some of the limbs and codes and whatnot, but you get into it and it really clarifies the kind of organization that they want to build, and then obviously brings in sort of the marketing and storytelling, recipe for how you can scale it in the way we've it's sort of the DIY for that movement building of your own whatever.
But here's something that I loved, and this is really speaks to what you were just saying. It's the part of this work moves in waves. In the first wave, it's not branding or product market fit. It's also not a catchy name or a half-baked pitch deck. It's the crystallization of the soul of your business or cult movement or whatever you want to call it. It's the part where you stop performing, get quiet, and remember why the hell you care in the first place. You trace the signal, that raw, unfiltered frequency of you, and you sit with it long enough for it to start making sense again. In India, they would say, very good, bahut acha. Really?
Thank you.
No. I mean, this is what the core. This is the core message as far as I can see, and in terms of my own experience with, especially these last 20 years or 25, whatever it's been, with Love, Serve, Remember. In fact, we're just going through. Maybe I'll send the book to everybody on the staff, because people are definitely wanting to know what's ahead, what's going to happen, what's the future. So being able to really digest this within oneself, which is well said in what I just read, is super important to be able to transmit that to anybody.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it resonated with you. And it's interesting. I said this earlier in the call, but sort of I've always been clear on sort of my values and my purpose and areas of this, but having a structure and a scaffolding to really be accountable to and to move through with some integrity has opened my eyes to kind of new heights that I can reach as a leader and as a company. And so, tucked within those limbs of yoga. I mean, you asked me this earlier, but really, it hit me like a lightning bolt. I mean, it was like, could I actually translate these 8 limbs into founder speak, into someone for a business, whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur working at a company? Like, could they actually map to bring into business? Because that's what I've always dreamed of doing, was bringing in all aspects of myself, to my leadership. And it's cool because you start with like the yamas, which is the first limb of yoga. The yamas and the niyamas, which are the first 2 limbs of yoga. I mean, it's really about ethical living.
Yeah.
The yamas are sort of your relationship with the world around you. The niyamas are really more internal. But those yamas, the first one's ahimsa. And that's one that a lot of people have heard of, right? Do no harm, common Buddhist, philosophy. But what does that mean in business? How do you deliver your product or service in the most conscious way possible? You might even be running a nonprofit, Raghu. And you might look at is there any, how do I, take the harm that might be happening unintentionally to the planet in something that we're doing, right? How do we look at all aspects of our organization, say, how do we do no harm to the planet, do no harm to the people within, our staff, our other folks? So then there's real reflections to look at and practices to move through. And this is not just like a one-way ladder. It's something that then can be looked at and checked back on. Now that's one of the yamas. I mean, another one is truthfulness. And how do we, and that obviously Neem Karoli Baba, right? Tell the truth. And
so love everyone. Tell the truth.
And love everyone, which, so tell the truth. How do we really look at where we might be unintentionally sort of co-opting something that's not ours? And then you get further in to the limbs and the codes, and I can go in as much as you want, but you can start getting into things like what you were just, that piece that you just spoke to. You come to pratyahara, which is like withdrawal of the senses. That's really, it's where we start in meditation, but only, as Ram Dass said, the quieter we get, the more we can hear. So when you withdraw from the senses, then maybe you can, so that's like digital literally what that means is get out of your social media and get all these inputs and noise coming at you every single day, obsessed with your competition, this, that. Get quiet enough so you can actually hear your own signal, and then that next one from pratyahara, dharana, that's deep focus on that signal. You've gotten quiet enough to find it. Now get that tunnel vision that, those of us that have built, organization, and you need that to, and then bringing other folks on your team into it. So that's sort of how I'm playing with the various limbs. And I call it, this cultivate codex, the 8 limbs, the cultivate codex. And these are different codes. With each code, there's literal ways to play with it with your business. Like literally, how do I take harm? Are there things to be more sustainable in how I'm interacting with the planet? But then there's aspects that are less literal as well for you to play with your own, practice.
Mm.
And then mapped for each of them is this leadership learning path. So you're learning different aspects of leadership through each of these codes, which again, as Ram Dass, felt. I mean, these 8 limbs have been utilized since Patanjali 2,500 years ago kind of brought them to the Yoga Sutras, and have been utilized for more individual sort of contentment and a path towards enlightenment for forever. But I think I liked also how Ram Dass sort of wove them into lots of his teachings, which was it's more of this broth with many doorways towards more contentment and more more service in your life.
Kindness, compassion, and love. Here's what you say. You were pointing to it before. It's around truthfulness in business, right? It's about not gaslighting your audience, your team, or even yourself, because here's the deal. Authenticity beats perfection every single time. People can sniff out, spin like a bloodhound on espresso. If your brand is selling sunshine while your product burns down rainforests, guess what? They're going to find out. And then they're going to post about it loudly. This is not the era of perfect brands, but the era of human brands that are messy, clear, self-aware, and just vulnerable enough to admit they're still figuring it out. That's very important. As a dear friend of mine once said, vulnerability is sexy. I don't know. Okay. But
you're Canadian. You think vulnerability is sexy?
No, we're Canadians. We stick to a very, very, very simple tack in everything we do. Oh God. So, yeah, I actually think. I mean, you talk. So everybody, this is information that Gagan is on the board of Love Serve Remember Foundation, and he's demonstrated what he's speaking to by saying, what kind of products are you bringing into the store, right? We have the Ram Dass shop, which has all kinds of beautiful stuff, but who's making it? And, have you looked behind any of this? And not really. So, these are the kind of areas that are easy to dismiss, but good to bring up because they certainly shine a spotlight on the areas that we, in our normal day-to-day lives, shut things out in terms of the environment in particular. I mean, I see with myself every day. And it's the same kind of a thing in this dialogue between you and me, or whoever's running the store, whatever, it's there and it needs to come out, and we need to think about it and act on it, which is part of what you're speaking to, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, these are very tactical, sort of easy areas to clean up and sweep the corners, but there's other areas, within tucked in the limbs, like for instance, the 4th limb is pranayama, which a lot of folks know. Most folks know, pranayama as breath, right?
Yeah.
And sort of regulation. So there's a very literal piece of that where when are you breathing? You're leading, your staff is going to feel it if you're clenched up, right? And you're nervous so how do you breathe and regulate your own central nervous system? But then what is the central nervous system of your organization, of our nonprofit.
Mm.
Like, how do we regulate that central nervous system? How do we make it so that everyone here is breathing in? Is the organization breathing in, taking information in, holding it? Is there coherence? And then coming out into the world and amplifying it. This is sort of that marketing. This is where, it moves from internal culture and a feeling of regulated central nervous system to external storytelling and marketing. And these are the easy things to skip over. It's a lot of folks, think they're coming to me or Guru or that beautiful creative campaign we did or website we built or something. And then tucked within that is all of this other stuff, where I'm saying, whoa, let's not jump right to that. Let's build some coherence here internally first and find what's authentically, ours to own, what's potentially resonant out there in the world, what's differentiated from what other folks are doing. Let's breathe that in, hold that for a minute, see how that sits in our system, and then breathe out. And so that's pranayama, and the leadership on this leadership journey that I speak to in here, that's regulated leadership. Like, and yes, it can be done, at whatever age, at whatever, size of business of 1 or 10,000.
That practice goes for everybody. Out of business, in cults and out of whatever, moment to moment. That is in my mind, the strongest practice that we can accomplish a huge thing, which is not reacting the way that we normally do by using that breath that Gagan just described. But certainly in terms of using it as a leader, absolutely necessary. And I'm still, I recognize so clearly the times that I haven't, and it has been very not productive at all, You have this thing, you call it the integrity inventory. You want to talk about some of the things there? I mean, just the first one. I just went through this.
Which page is that on? Which page is that on?
25. Page 25 of your hymnal.
The marginalia edition. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, that's in code
time
1.
Theft.
So,
yeah, maybe different because you redid the book, but time theft. Are you wasting people's time with meetings that it could have been emails or emails that could have been nothing? Yeah, let's bring that up. This is a huge thing.
Yeah,
burr under the saddle.
Especially in this time. Yeah, it's Asteya, steal less, create more, is sort of the title of this. Is the third of the yamas. It looks at time theft, idea theft, energy theft, emotional theft, and planetary theft. And so this is the practice. I call it the integrity inventory. I mean, it's really interesting. I'm getting all kinds of, now that the book's out there and getting, a lot of feedback, a lot of people writing emails and doing the actual exercises. So we've developed a companion with this where you can type in your answers. So there's reflection, you can type in your reflection and then you can put in your practices and then coming out, and we can put all this in the show notes or, whatever. People, these are the sorts of things that sneak underneath your, maybe your awareness at times when you're building fast, and especially at times like this. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Like, this is times of scarcity right now. A lot of nonprofits are losing their funding from the current administration. A lot of companies are being squeezed from various angles, tariffs and different things. And so in times like that, start looking at where to have cost savings. And the first things to go are things like this, right? Impact and culture. And I think they are. diverse. Yeah, it's some of the most important stuff you can work on. This is why, I mean, Guru, which is our main business, but I also founded this other technology company with the platform Darwin 6 years ago, where we're looking at public companies and how, does their behavior match the perception of them in certain areas of impact. So think about environmentalism. We built this platform where we aggregate all this data out there, public data, on how is, whatever public company doing environmentally, really from a behavior standpoint, and then what do their stakeholders actually think about them environmentally, and how do we close that gap? What are the risks and opportunities in that? And so for me, working with more like activist brands and nonprofits, things like that, this is all stuff where it's just like better can get better. But there's some of these massive companies that are it's extractive, and my hope is with this platform that we built, we can actually show them the financial rewards that will come to them quantitatively if they look into some of these things and start to better their behavior in various areas. It's not what the whole book's about, but it's certainly an area that you were just pointing at with that integrity inventory.
Yeah. Yeah, and the emotional theft. When you really start, I mean, look what we do, Love, Serve, Remember Foundation, centered around Ram Dass's teachings and the teachings of Neem Karoli Baba, that there were no teachings, but whatever he said to us back then. I mean, we're a nonprofit, but I still can see the way my mind, fortunately I have Ram Dass, even though he's not here in a physical. He's here for me. I'm thinking, okay, am I doing a little twist there, a little dance to, attract more whatever in one way or the other? So mindfulness is extraordinarily important. It really, how else can you see your, the me in each one of us without that? Self-interest.
Well, and for me, it's in his name, right? Ram Dass, servant of Ram. I mean, it's Hanuman. And that's why I think that when I first heard you, I didn't even know what the words meant, but when I first heard you singing that Hanuman Chalisa, it spoke to me. It woke, and there was a seed that was watered inside me in some way. And now, years later, it's like I've got, Hanuman on my puja and in different places around the house, and people come in, they're like, so,
it's crazy, really.
What's this flying monkey? Talk about cult, right? Like, check all the boxes. You got a flying monkey and like a, guy in a robe with long hair. And, but, Hanuman, I mean, really, when I feel into myself, having that focal point that can come to mind of just seeing it, I start to realize the aspirational self in me, and it starts to bring me closer to being of service. Starting with in the name of Ram Dass, it's all there because in that servant of Ram, Hanuman, servant of Ram, and for me, they're having that focal point, this flying monkey. As people come into my house and see Hanuman on my puja and other places, for me, there's something very real that awakens in me. It actually brings me back into my awareness and my aspiration and my intent to be of service to whoever I'm with, and really love them and be of service to them in whatever organization I'm working with. And that is where I am happiest. And it brings me contentment and, hopefully the others that I'm with. So, it comes back to, that, as you say, that move from me to we. And, Hanuman has been, helpful in that journey for me, funny enough.
It's actually crazy how many people know the Hanuman. For those of you who don't know, the Hanuman Chalisa is 40 verses in Hindi in praise of Hanuman, the monkey god, who is the emblem of love, service, and self-sacrifice. And when we first went to India, met him only because there was a statue there in Kenchi where we first met up with Neem Karoli Baba. And, we didn't care about much except just staying around that thing, that Neem Karoli Baba thing in a blanket. We just wanted to stay there, and it's you're peaking on an acid trip, or something like the MDMA, whatever it may be. You're completely at one with yourself. We wanted to stay there. We didn't want to. So, okay. He liked the Hanuman Chalisa. Okay, so we'll learn the Hanuman. Learning 40 verses in Hindi. Okay, being little, early 20s hippies. But we did. And then something else happened that we had no idea about, and certainly myself. Like, you said it already. I don't know how that worked. I didn't know one word of it, but something happened in that moment. And I've heard that story a billion times, honestly.
Right.
And so all's to say there is something going on other than what we think and what stories we tell ourselves. Once we agree to that, and like you talk about in the book, if we don't know we're in prison, we got a problem, which Ram Dass said one way or the other, But this model that you're talking about, an inspiration, that kind of inspiration, it's staggering. The way in which Hanuman was so unconcerned over his own self. When he was even asked by Ram, I'll give you anything you want. Nobody found his wife who was kidnapped by him. Whatever you want, I'll give you in any of the worlds. And Hanuman falls at his feet of Ram and says, save me from the tentacles of the egoism. That's the biggest ass thing we brought back, because that's a lifetime of work, constant work, right? And that's what you're pointing to here. Really.
That's exactly right. And there's that other quote, I don't know where it came from, you might, but when I forget who I am, I serve you. When I remember who I am you.
Yeah, that's Ramayana. Yeah.
And so, that, for me, literally is our soul coming into our body. We forget. Almost by design, to experience separateness here. The spirit here or our souls to experience this separateness while we're here and move through this human school and be of service. And then maybe, through some tools, through some practice, through various things, maybe upon death, who knows, remember who we are.
Be good to happen before. We might try. You never know.
Yeah. Well, we're certainly doing our best.
Hey, here's something.
Can I read one thing? I want to read one thing on what you just said with Ram Dass, because in the front of the book, I just said, I have a note on appropriation, aka how not to be a jackass with sacred stuff. And I feel like being here on the Ram Dass, on the Be Here Now network, I need to give a little love here to Ram Dass. So this is just one paragraph about him. And to Ram Dass, teacher, trickster, mirror map, your life was a transmission of truth wrapped in mischief and kindness. Your presence made the sacred accessible without ever diluting its depth. You walked the line between east and west with barefoot grace and left a trail for the rest of us to stumble along, laughing and crying as we go. I was lucky enough to be in your soul pod, sitting at your feet, learning from you firsthand. I'm absolutely honored to carry your legacy forward as a board member of the foundation that bears your name. This book is steeped in your wisdom, even when it's not quoting you outright. Thank you for reminding us we're all just walking each other home.
That's really lovely, man. Yeah. I had something else I wanted to read, though, from here. I
Sure.
thought it was a very insightful thing on your part. You say, I've come to realize one thing, that chasing security is often just code for chasing control. That's a very profound point, which is the opposite of surrender. Aparigraha, non-attachment, doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care from a different seat. You show up, you serve, you build, but you stop worshiping the financials, and you don't grow for growth's sake. You start trusting the flow, not just forecasting it. Because if you're clinging, you're not creating. And if your fists are full of control, there's no room left for grace. Let go or be dragged. Okay, that's this is, I mean, clinging is the whole deal. We all, everybody, that's all we do every moment, one way or the other. So to do practices that are, again, outlines in this book as well, is to free to some degree yourself from that terrible attachment, clinging, righteousness.
Yeah. I mean, I think you brought up Bob Thurman. I remember him saying in one of the retreats something like, preference is okay, but not attachment. Something like in that zone, not attachment to preference. And,
talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
no, Bob, just you reminded me of something. One of the most difficult terms in Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist particularly, philosophy, but Buddhist philosophy, is the term emptiness. And Bob used to go on about that, right? I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you heard all of them, so you heard them.
Oh yeah.
And he'd say, nothingness. No, there's no nothing. There can't be nothing. So that whole thing is just ridiculous. That nihilistic thing of what emptiness is.
Yeah.
And then he said, "This is what emptiness is." The womb of bliss. I'll never forget that. I mean, just think of he was such
The womb of bliss.
Yeah.
I love that.
Where there's no me. Because there's no more of that none of that. You're just in that wide open here.
Yeah.
And now.
I mean, I remember in one of the retreats, he was talking about how, upon merging back, with the void or whatever you would call it, you will experience every one of your lifetimes, all the suffering, all the bliss, all of it at once. And
you can handle that.
for the beauty that it is bringing you into this exact moment of merging back with that, womb of bliss, let's say. I remember he was a really joyful guy, such a fun teacher to listen to. I mean, really, like, that's what I've loved most about, this group of folks that you all, throughout on the podcast and whatnot, but Ram Dass and him and Roshi and Sharon. I mean, just the Alan Watts, the joy, just a bunch of, like Ram Dass would say, rascals, not making it so serious, just bringing it in, having the medicine and the honey.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know how much Ram Dass talked about, self-seriousness, taking it all just way over the top dramatically, because that puts a real person in there that is totally attached, everything of a human. It's gone too far. We take it too far as humans. we kind of enjoy, because we sort of enjoy the way in which, all of our flaws and our neurotic tendencies and habitual patterns, they're comfy. And that's the issue. And part of that issue can be transformed through you're not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, I also try to, teach from the middle with this stuff, I mean, because I put my thoughts into a book, that came through to me does not make me some, deserved of a pedestal, which the wise man speaks down to the masses. It's really, most of what this book has is my, imperfect journey, in working with all of this stuff myself, and then reflections and practices with which you can take and do it yourself. And I am just loving getting everyone's stuff on this, and seeing it, people move through it. It's a lot of fun. And like you said earlier, vulnerability. When I first came out of the music industry and was dropping into this whole socially responsible business world, this kind of nexus of impact in business, not only was spirituality really serious, impact was really serious. It's like you're doing sustainability. It's you got to be serious. And so my whole way to build more impactful companies and movements and things like that, it's like meet people where they're at, help them have a great time, and more joy in their life, and create engaging, fun content and campaigns and experiences and all kinds of things where you don't even realize you're sort of being educated on some of these things until you're in the midst of it, and you end up maybe even changing your behaviors, changing the ways that you consume things in the world, changing the ways that the choices of experiences that you have to be more in alignment with your values, but you're doing it from a place of joy, not from a place of like indictment,
Yeah. You should.
Yeah, that ain't working so good. Never worked for me as a kid coming up.
Here it is. Start your own damn cult. It's the same cover, right?
Yeah.
Because I know you changed something. Yeah, and we'll have links to all of that and to some of the other stuff we were talking about. And when you go to BeHereNowNetwork.com/mindrolling and go to the show notes, and you'll see it all. No, this can be really helpful on different levels too, and it's fun. You did a fun thing with this book.
Oh, if I touch it, I hope it's going to be fun, man. What is our friend out there, Ram Dass's best friend, says out on Maui? If it ain't fun, don't do it.
Oh, that
if you gotta
the lady.
Do it, make it fun.
Yeah,
and you know what? I had to do it, man. It came through so clear. I had to do it, but I had to make it fun.
Yeah, no, it's fun. And we will do it again. We'll figure something else out. Gagan does the occasional podcast with me on interesting subjects, various. We could do sometimes I'm away, so Noah puts together an anthology of podcasts on a certain subject or theme, and we can do Gagan Levy. Gagan Jared Levy.
You've been trying to talk me into it you've been trying to talk me into it for a bit now.
I know, that's right.
Maybe I'm finally ready. I've been studying your thousands of podcasts now. How many are you up to on Mindrolling?
I don't really know, but it's well over 600, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
God bless.
Yeah, God bless. Thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it, and I think this is for anybody who's thinking of, reorganizing their thoughts around how to create a workplace. This is right on. Right on. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, brother.